guys, Toast20 here, welcome back to Mile Bay. Today we're going to be tackling our residential demand head on. You know what, even over the next couple of weeks we're going to be just trying to fulfill that residential demand that is really put us on a bit of a stalemate at this point within St. Marie. Because we do have areas that I do want to start zoning out some industry like this area and over here, and even areas over this way I would like to be industry. This part over here, you know, there's lots of these gaps that I think would look great if we were to just, put in some industrial zones. Plus, we're just never making a huge amount of money. And I think that's because we don't have a huge amount of industry within the map. And 15,000 residents is pretty low. And it means that there's a lot of things that I can't build yet. For instance, I want to start building our port, and we are so far away from building a port that... I mean, it's just like, come on. When are we going to be getting to that? Not to mention our airport. I mean, 55,000 residents? Come on. There's no way we're going to get 55,000 residents within St. Marie. So we need to think about the next place that we're going to build up. And that place is this little peninsula over here. This is going to be our second city. So before we start mapping it out and figuring out what it looks like, I think we should just get a bit more cash in our bank because, I mean, we're going to blow through a lot of money. So let's just speed up the gameplay and get us a little bit more cash. I think that should be enough money to get us through a bit of the road layout and start placing down some services. Bit of a safety net, to be honest. So we're going to leave St. Marie and we're going to go over to our little spot. I should probably actually turn off the fog because you can't really see what we're doing. So the idea behind this place is to create something really different to St. Marie. And I've been reading all your suggestions and comments, so thank you so much for getting some ideas through because there have been some really good ones. A lot of people suggesting things around Florida, and I would love to do something based around Florida, but I don't know, without giving too much away, let's not do anything based around Florida for this series. Did I give too much away? Anyway, let's just hold on to the idea. But anyway, let's build something a little bit different to somewhere like that, but kind of taking similar ideas. So let's have a little fly around Google Earth, and I'm going to talk about some of the areas that I'm going to be mixing into our new city. And by the way, we have no name for this city, so if you've got some ideas, hit us up. Like I said, Florida, put a pin in that one. We'll revisit that idea later on in something else. But for this series, what I'm thinking, well, this city I should say, I'm thinking that it would be kind of interesting to mix in a couple of different ideas from this area. A lot of people suggesting places, suggesting that I look at places around Mobile, and I think that Mobile looks really interesting, but I actually think I'm going to be looking more at the industrial areas around Mobile for when I build industry around St. Marie, because I think this sort of stuff is really, really cool, and I would like to build, similar waterfronts where, we've got these wharves and, big ports and stuff. But I actually have to build up that population before I get anything into industry. A lot of people wanted me to do some resorts, stuff like this, which I think would be interesting. We could even put some sort of theme park. We could even put in some sort of marine park and different types of resorts, which I think might work to build up some of the population. Because I think we could probably use a lot of the apartments to sort of act as resorts. And that way we can bump that population up, get a bit of a skyline, do something different to St. Marie. But I think building some sort of resorts would be super interesting. And it would be hard to try and make it work within a vanilla scene, trying to make sure that those buildings are getting the adequate services to stay around, not go abandoned, and even looking at some sort of road layouts that are similar to these sort of like holiday parks. So that's sort of what I'm thinking, but I'm also wanting to build up a bit of a skyline around there, around at least the ocean side of the headland. Something like Gulfport on the bay would be really interesting, and even like the road layout could be just a fun contrast between, I guess, whatever we do on the ocean side. But I would like to get some sort of skyline on that ocean because I think that'd be a really different sort of city to what we got going on in St. Marie. So maybe the skyline will be resorts, or maybe we try and build something that's more of a, office blocks and downtown sort of thing going on. I haven't really quite figured that out, but I guess we can start playing around with the road layout and get a bit of an idea. I know this is Florida, but you know, just getting some different ideas into that area. So first things first, I do think that we need to widen this just a smidge because it's pretty narrow. And before we even get there, let's get rid of this highway because I don't think we don't really need a highway just yet. And then even looking at this highway, I think it doesn't need to be that wide. So we're going to make it a lot smaller. Maybe even, we'll go 3. We'll go 3. And then we'll put it into a 2. And then let's remove these trees and we'll rethink about how this whole area is going to take shape because this is just a little too thin. We need to widen it up just a smidge. So the water has pretty much calmed down after all that terraforming and it's just got a little bit of flooding going on, but that's all right. We're going to get into a time lapse pretty shortly because there's a bit of layout work that I want to do and I think we need to jump into a time lapse to do it. But I want to just give you a bit of an idea of what I want to achieve in that time lapse and my thinking behind it. Basically, we do have this highway already established. The idea behind Mile Bay was to create a series where we saw how the places developed over time as we work through the milestones. Now, this area that we're about to create is going to sort of represent that, but it's going to be a little bit different. Mostly because we already have these pre-existing highways. I'm not exactly about to demolish them and start from a dirt road. I'm not about to do a whole time period where we show the development of this place over time. We're not going that sophisticated. But with that being said, I would like to still imagine that this town and St. Marie would be connected or would have been connected with some sort of dirt road or some sort of connection, whether that was a smaller road or smaller bridge that went across this bay area, maybe not as high up as this highway, or maybe it was just a ferry terminal or something that was connecting the two places together, and then this highway has been developed and created over time. This is going to be where I think the downtown's going to sit, and the highway, the main road is going to go through there and we'll connect it up. So that's where my road's going to go. And then, you know what? I reckon if we do end up building, going through and making more highways, I think it would probably go in a different location. Maybe we'll have the highway snake somewhere else. But anyway, that's sort of my idea. We're going to keep the highway the way it is, and we're just going to have a main road connected up to it. Also, I would like to think about some sort of train connection. It's going to make things a lot more complicated, but I think it would be a real missed opportunity not to connect up our city to St. Marie via a train network, and even the freight line too. So that's going to be a bit tricky because how is that going to get across the bay? We don't have a huge amount of room, and I don't know. It's going to be a little bit hard. I think we'll have to pull up some Google Earth inspiration to get some ideas. But some sort of train connection. I would like the freight line and a passenger service connected. So probably the passenger service somewhere around here, and then the freight line is going to come this way. And you can sort of see we've got a bit of a swamp type of bay area, mostly because I wanted it to be pretty different to the beach side, which is going to be all resorts, and over this way is going to be industry. Building some sort of ports out there. And I guess that's the idea. So we're going to jump to a time lapse and I'm going to start figuring out the layout, and I think that's probably about as much as we're going to get through it. All right, let's get into a time lapse. So first things first, I wanted to establish those founding roads of the city. We are starting off as an avenue, but of course this would have, these roads would have been dirt roads, as they would have been transporting either goods or people or just access roads to certain locations, and then this place has been established. What was the establishing industry or reason why people were here in the first place? But this road would have been one of the more founding roads, and I'll sort of try to imagine where it would have gone throughout the foothills of these mountains and along this bay area too. Always like a fun little thing to think about when you are establishing some roads. And I think even just thinking about it, when you are building roads and, dragging out these networks, I think it does help to make them feel a lot more realistic, even if, you can't really go back in time and really think that critically about it. And of course, I'm not starting off as dirt roads as they would have probably been established. St. Marie did start off with much smaller roads, and we were able to develop a little bit more of that sense of time. But for this city, we are kind of missing a couple of steps. We are fast forwarding because I will want this city to be a bit more established over the next couple of episodes. We're not going to really see the skyline grow quite the same as St. Marie's skyline. It's taken a couple of months for that skyline to actually form and the city to even remotely be a city. This is going to be built a bit faster. I did want to keep this highway out this way, but I have changed it just a smidge. I didn't plan to change it all that much, but I think this sort of flows a bit better between these. There's these two mountains that sit on this headland, and in order to get the highway in a bit more of a realistic sense around here, I thought we just needed to change it just a little bit. And I'm still thinking about what this place is going to look like, at least this part of the city, because it is very different up here. It's actually quite hilly, quite mountainous up on this headland, and I figured we'll probably have some sort of nature reserve, some bigger park, and I think it's going to be mostly suburban sprawl. I think this would be a great spot to actually build up a bit of the population and even just zone out rather than placing down buildings and just watch them grow, and hopefully they do their job and grow and establish into something that is, remotely realistic around there. Whereas around the city, I'm probably going to be using plot the growables for around where at least the resorts are going to be, definitely plopped. But then there's going to be a lot of other areas like the downtown and even some suburbs. I'll probably end up just using plot the growables just so I can establish something that looks quite realistic. But then all around the outer skirts, I think we can probably get away with just a bit of zoning. I decided to put in this little lagoon here. I felt like we needed a couple of bodies of water. I will build another one too, but I feel like this is a nice transition from the city to then just either random sprawling neighborhoods or nature or just nothing. I feel like we needed some sort of barrier. I always think about what is going to be the outer edges of the city. What is it going to look like? I think this is always the trickiest part about city planning within city skylines, because I think it's really easy to build the centers and the suburbs, but then where does that all finish? In real life, it's agriculture and suburbs and industry, and you can sort of see how the city is expanding into these areas. But then within city skylines, it's kind of hard to draw that line and say, okay, where does that end? And I think sometimes an easy option is to build some sort of body of water, like I've built over there, and even on the other side. Actually, pretty much this whole city is surrounded by bodies of water. But I know previously, for me, it's always been really difficult to figure out where the city's going to finish. So now I'm just trying to, well, at least more recently, I now build my cities with a bit of an idea of where it's going to finish up, and I even sort of start placing some things around the areas where I think, okay, that's definitely gonna be where it's gonna finish. Where there's a mountain there, or I've planned out agriculture, or there's another body of water, or there's a forest. What does that look like, and how does it look like this city is starting to creep into those areas? is there industry creeping over there? Are there suburbs taking over some agriculture? I always think it's just an interesting part of city planning, and it's something that I always look out for on Google Earth. I always like to see how the city is starting to encroach onto some other areas. I also just built another road that goes towards the foothills of the mountains. I think I'll talk a bit more about that in the live play at the end, because I do want to start talking about some of these roads that I'm now starting to drag out. These are the streets of the city, getting a bit of a sense of how the grid's going to look, trying to make sure that, after a couple of blocks, the grid changes just slightly. As you can see, it's not a massive city, at least the parts where I'm starting to map out. I mean, we've only really got, it's about, 6 blocks wide. It's pretty small in terms of a city. That's definitely on the smaller side of things. We're scaling this thing down quite a lot. We will be expanding out a lot more than I am mapping out at the moment. This is more the parts that are going to be a bit more traditional inner city grid layouts of American cities, Western cities. But then I am leaving just a bit of space so that when we do expand out, we can build some more windy, cul-de-sac type of neighborhoods, houses that'll look the same. That sort of more modern style of, suburban sprawl. Whereas closer to the inner parts of the city, we're going to be doing a bit more, just classic grids. I do get comments every now and again saying, oh no, great, another city with grids. Well, I mean, we are building a city inspired by American cities, and American cities have grids. I mean, most cities have grids. And I don't know, I just like building in a bit more of a realistic sense rather than kind of just building random stuff. I don't really know how to answer that question, but a lot of people do leave comments saying, with the complaint that I do just grids. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not building European cities, and I'm not building cities that are fantasy. They're kind of just based on reality, and reality cities are generally gridded. Moving on from our city though, we are now working around the bridge because I did want to make it so that we could get some sort of train network over here. I mean, it's a pretty big gap to cross, but I thought it'd always be a really interesting part of this series to connect up pretty much everywhere, all the towns, all the cities, all the industry with a train network. So we are creating a bridge, and at first I was trying to make it elevated so we could have enough room for these ships to get through. We've got cruise ships and we've got cargo ships too, but obviously it just wasn't looking right. And it's because that doesn't usually happen. I mean, train lines don't usually elevate to that height. And I say usually because there are exceptions, but typically train lines don't usually elevate that high because first of all, it would be really hard for a train to maneuver or even elevate at a degree quite like bridges do for vehicles. Vehicles can actually have sudden changes in elevation, whereas trains not so much. And I guess it would be very expensive to create these bridges. You want to try and have the least amount of infrastructure as possible to save on costs. So what I'm doing here instead is keeping it quite low down. I'm taking inspiration from a couple of bridges just outside of Bilox and Gulfport, I guess, these areas. I don't know. I guess these areas. I couldn't really see a huge amount of places where train lines cross bodies of water quite like this, because this is a pretty large gap. And yeah, there's suburbs and there's towns and there's highways and bridges and stuff like that all out these areas, all along coastlines. But train lines, not so much. They typically go around places that I guess are just easier to maneuver around. Bodies of water, not so much. So Mile Bay, definitely not the sort of place where you'd see a train line connecting up all these towns. I think that would be pretty difficult. And look, not to go down a complete rabbit hole, but I feel like the train infrastructure within the US is pretty limited. In particular, the passenger service. I am always surprised at the lack of train stations within towns and cities. Always fly around Google Earth, around the United States, and trying to get inspiration, trying to find places, ideas for how train stations look within these towns, and typically I'm not really finding a lot. Australia is not great either, but I feel like we've got, in terms of like a ratio of towns and cities, connected up with some sort of passenger service. I think we've probably got more than the United States, but I could be wrong. Definitely not I'm not a train guy. I'm not a guy who researches things and does his homework. I fly around Google Earth and just make assumptions and then get corrected in the comment section. So that's about as much research as I'm gonna do. But based on my 15 minutes of research, I guess numerous times flying around Google Earth, these are my assumptions, and I would love your opinion on the matter. But I do see a lot of comments quite often saying, yeah, train stations in the United States, not great. And I guess that's where like Mile Bay differs from real life. It's we're kind of building things in a more fun sense. So if we want a train line crossing a massive bay like that, damn it, we're gonna do it because it's fun and it looks cool. But as you can see, I did make it just a little custom. I tried to create something that was, look like it probably rotates and opens up for these cruise ships to pass through. But of course, unfortunately, there is no such bridge asset on the workshop at this stage for a train line. There are some great ones for like a bridge, for like a road bridge, but nothing in terms of trains. So I don't know. If you're an asset creator and listening to this, we would love one, but I have no idea how you'd even create one in the first place. But yeah, as you can see, we're just figuring out where this line goes through the city, but I think we'll probably make some adjustments because I just wanted to get a bit of an idea, bit of a sense of where it's going to go. But guys, that is it for the time lapse. Let's jump into a live play and talk a bit about the things we've been up to. I can't wait until we get to building the city because it's just going to look so nice with St. Marie in the background, the mountains, the lake, the ocean, the swamp, then the city. It's going to look so cool. So I want to just fly around and just talk a bit about the road layout and the train line too, because there's some things that I probably didn't really get to in the time lapse. And then I also want to fly around because I think there's some things that just don't look right. We need to do a bit of work because I was just flying through trying to make sure that everything was connected. So we're just going to check out the road layout because there are some things that I might not have been able to show you in the time lapse. So as you can see, what I was trying to say in the very beginning of this episode, I want to have a continuation of this road, the main road, as it's progressed and developed into this highway now. And you can really see how that stretches all the way through the downtown, which is going to sit around here. Now, I don't think that's going to be the best option down the track because I think we're going to see quite a lot of traffic, especially when the city gets a bit bigger. So we're probably going to expand out and build a highway that stretches somewhere else through the city, but I'm going to just see how we go with that. I also wanted to show that there is a road going out towards this area, which, that might be the first thing that we do is establish where that road goes. At the moment, it has a dead end here, and it would be kind of cool to see it stretch out to this headland. I don't think going all the way out there. So let's just, for the time being, I believe I can make an outside connection because I am using a mod that allows me to create more outside connections. So let's just see if that works. Can't create any more. Okay. That's fine. Let's just create a temporary one and I'll reload the game a little later with that mod. So we can actually get some vehicles coming out this way because I think that would be really cool. And so the purpose of that is to show that it's not just this main road here. There is a road another main road that goes out into the valley over here. You can imagine that beyond this point, there is probably, this probably goes more inland and this takes a more coastal route. So that's why I've got a bit of a fork in the road here where we've got three different places the traffic is going to go. And this road, of course, is the highway. It probably stretches towards another major city, whereas this one probably goes towards some smaller towns and some agriculture, or even some other areas that don't really need as much traffic, hence the reason why we've still just got this much smaller road. But the train line does go out there. So I've decided for the train line to go out towards this way rather than going out along the ocean way, because I figured that's probably going to be where a lot more industry, agriculture, it's probably going to have an easier time getting around as well, because I think going around the coastline would be very tricky for a train line, particularly if there's nothing really out that way. But then we've also got this secondary road that does sort of connect up Well, it doesn't just sort of. It definitely connects up. But you can also see how that road has stretched out and it goes, oh boy. But it does stretch out towards the bridge, but then also travels along this whole edge. So I've tried to make it so that you can see the main roads of the city, and then the city has developed and these smaller roads, these streets have been built afterwards. And similar to this guy over here. All right, that's a bit of an explanation about the roads. I mean, oh, that's the sort of stuff I really like doing. We're getting a lot of flooding, so we'll just ignore that. Here is our train bridge, and it is a shame that it doesn't swivel, but whatever. It looks fine. We don't really see that many boats coming through. They will clip through there. It's fine. It's fine. Maybe if you're an asset creator, you want to create something like that. I have no idea how people even create assets in the first place, so I am happy with how that looks anyway. I have made sure that it lines up with the opening here, and I reckon we'll be back around the bridge because I'm not totally satisfied with how everything is looking over there, but for now, it's fine. And then, look, we need to connect this guy up, don't we? So let's make that the next job that we do. So in order to connect there, we're probably going to have to tunnel under, which is always a bit trickier, but I reckon we can make it work. So I'm going to start my connection first up, and then I'll make it go underground. And then I can use move it to drop it below. Is this how I really want to do it? Maybe not. Maybe there is going to be a tunnel over here, but that's going to access, because I think this is going to be a great spot for some freight and some cargo hubs. But maybe the other train line, I mean, we could just continue it a little across here and then yeah, let's do that. We'll revisit the tunnel, but for now, let's get rid of it. Let's instead just follow this road, and this will be the main line. And then when we start building a bit more of the freight network and the cargo hubs, so we can start getting a little bit more cargo traveled around via the train network, I think this will be a great spot for it. And then we can maybe build a tunnel underneath. But I think just in terms of this connection, how about we just drag it across this highway, and we're just going to do a basic connection for now. Yeah, let's just leave that because this whole area is desperately needing some changes. This, gonna go. But then, just looking at all this, we're looking alright at the moment. I think everything is... No, that's not good. Let's straighten that up because trains, they don't really maneuver like that. Now that's a little high for a beach, so let's just do a bit of terraforming to make sure that looks a little bit better. And then just looking at our catenary, or at least lack of them, we need to add them in using network extensions mod. So I'm going to just make sure that looks the same because that's something that keeps on accidentally removing. And that gives us a good excuse just to check out this highway. I've left it 3 lanes. I felt like it's probably one of the better... I mean, we are going to be developing up around here quite a lot. So 3 lanes I think is totally fine. Still unsure what to do here. It's too close for an intersection or a crossing. Giving it some thought, we will create a crossing here. I'm going to drag the node just a bit closer so we can connect it to our train line. It is just a bit close, but we'll just see how we go. I don't imagine a huge amount of people using that road. It's not exactly going to just like, you know, it's going to probably what's going to be a nature reserve. And that'll be about it. Some houses sprawled across. Hopefully we won't get too much traffic banked up. But I'm going to be honest, this whole area is going to be a bit of a work in progress. We're going to update that as we develop up the city. And then in the next episode, we are working on the downtown and developing a bit of the residential. So I will keep the roads as they are, but I have removed quite a lot of the trees around here. So I think that's something that we do need to add. Now that we've got this swamp area, I'm going to add some... Yep, they're the ones. I'm just going to add some very basic swampiness, some trees just to give a bit of an atmosphere. My go-to technique for this is pretty much just creating clusters. So I'm just putting clusters just around the shoreline. I might put it around our little lagoon. And then, I don't know if you saw me create it, but we do have a little stream in here. I know you can't really see it because it's not there. Technically, there's no water in there. But if you put enough trees in there, then it does sort of give the impression that there is just a tiny little stream. And then you know what, we're even going to connect it all the way through here. And I think that's just about going to do it. I mean, this gives us such a good starting point. As you can see, it's not a massive place. It is sort of, I mean, I was going to say sort of the same size as St. Marie, but it's not really. It's actually quite a lot smaller. I know we've only really planned out this area, but I want you to imagine that all around here is going to be suburbs. We'll probably have something going up here, and there'll be something in this area too. Maybe even its own little town. And then something on this point I think would be really fun. Maybe this is even where you get the ferry to this island. I mean, there's so many different areas that we can develop up. We've only really established out some of these spots, and we've got just a couple of areas left to really think about what's going to go on those areas. So, I mean, next episode, I want to work on what is going to be the downtown of our city. This is going to be all glam. I think I'll put some casinos and some resorts. Pretty big skyline. We'll see what we get to in the next episode, how much we actually accomplish. And then over here, I'm going to save it for what I would like to be a bit more of an industrial hub. That might be there, or it could be out this spot, because we do have this big area here, which I think might be a good area for some sort of cargo terminal. I don't know. I'm just thinking something like that. But anyway, that is it for today's episode. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much for the support. And if you want to get involved, feel free to leave some name suggestions, some ideas, and anything in the comments section. I do read all the comments, so keep them coming. We are looking out for names and creating a bit more story behind this map, because we have got quite a lot of stuff established already. So hit me up in the comments. I want to give a special shout out to some of the wonderful people over on Patreon upon the channel. Green Reen, Toby Cruz, W Tiger TW, Aussie Sky, Wayne Peter, Anthony La, Barker, Caesar Grossi, Chance A, Omar Salika, Pedro Emmanuel, Sebi, and Philip Van Vliet. Thank you all so much for your support, and I'll catch you in the next one. Catch you later.